Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Absence of Malice. We are thrilled you're here. Bear with me one moment. I just want to make sure. Yep, sorry. I had to check and make sure that our Facebook Live feed was also working. So, again, welcome. Glad you're all here. Thank you all for staying in and being with us. For those of you who aren't familiar, Malice Domestic is an annual event. It is held in beautiful Maryland. And this year, understandably, because it always happens at the beginning of May, it was canceled. So about a week and a bit ago, I got a message from Jeff Cohen, who also writes as E.J. Copperman, saying that he and Catriona McPherson had an idea to do sort of a virtual Malice event. And I thought, well, that sounds like fun, and I'd love to help out. And I was thinking, oh, that'll be, 5 or 6 authors. It'll be great. And lo and behold, because the nature of Malice is such that it's incredibly welcoming and friendly, we ended up with 17 folks who are all here to chat with you. I am going to do my very best to keep the technology working. The way it's going to work is we'll have 3 folks on screen at any given moment. And then when somebody finishes talking, somebody else will come in. So the people we're starting out with are Art Taylor. Give us a wave, Art. And you're probably familiar with Art because of his work in short stories. He's won, I think, just about every short story award out there. And he has also written a really exceptional novel that I highly recommend. One thing I do want to throw in here is I've asked all of the authors participating to please make sure and let you know about their books. They're all available everywhere books are sold. If everybody here is also very supportive of indie bookstores. If your favorite indie bookstore is not accepting orders at the moment for whatever reason, you can always go to bookshop.org and find books there. Now we have Kristopher Zgorski. Did I get that right?
You got it.
I've known Kristopher for years, and I'm still learning to say his last name. Kristopher is our Raven Award-winning proprietor of BOLObooks.com. He is one of the savviest readers I know, and somebody who always has a fabulous recommendation for you. And then we have Hank Phillippi Ryan. And hi, Hank. Hank is also a multiple award-winning author. I think just about everybody who's going to be here has won multiple awards. And Hank's latest book, I have to tell you this, The Murder List, is currently on sale in ebook format for $1.99. If you have not read it, I am a big fan of legal thrillers and legal mysteries. So I'm fairly discerning and critical of them. And The Murder List is truly one of the best. And I say that not just because Hank is a wonderful person, which she also is, but it really is true. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Art. We're going to start out with some of our folks telling stories from Malice and elsewhere about other people who are participating here, so you can get to know everybody a little bit better. So take it away, Art.
Okay. And I've understood you said I could give a shout out to an indie bookstore. I'm going to do that before I start on Chris. One More Page Books in Arlington, Virginia is a great bookstore. They are doing orders, and they do have my new collection, which is The Boy Detective and The Summer of '74 in stock. So shout out for One More Page. Now, in terms of Malice, one of my favorite things about Malice is about 6 months out from each Malice, people start talking about, what am I gonna wear? What hat am I gonna have? What shoes am I picking out? And then as it gets closer, people are packing and things like that. Now, a lot of this is getting into the spirit of the event, dressing up for the Agatha Awards banquet, dressing up for Dame Agatha's tea as the closing ceremony, just trying to look good. It's also about standing out some. And for authors, in many ways, this is a promotional opportunity to some degree, a chance to call some attention. I always think of Alice Louisi. I don't know if Alice is here, but Alice and her fascinators are always one of the highlights of Malice. Then here comes Chris. And I did not tell him what to wear today. He didn't know what I was going to talk about. But here comes Chris in an orange shirt, or a green shirt and a big eyeball at every turn. And he's even got a pair of orange Doc Martens. And if I understand correctly, I think he got some new orange shoes that he would have worn this year. Now, Chris is a master marketer, and get a shout out for his husband, Michael, who helps on some of the marketing too. But this is the difference with Chris. Whatever attention that Chris calls to himself, he's given back tenfold, and I would even say 100-fold to the rest of the mystery community through BOLO books, through the reviews, through the cover reveals, through the shout outs, the marketing that he gets, he's given back to others. And it's that gift to the community I want to thank him for today.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Absolutely.
You are. And because Kristopher is such an amazing person, we actually, when everybody was choosing people to talk about, Hank also was going to talk about Kristopher. So let's switch over and Hank, take it away.
Hi, all. It's so nice to see you. All the names on the list here: Cynthia and Katrina and Alexia and Kellye and Joanne and Cynthia and Gabriel and Sarah Paretsky is here. It's all so fabulous to see. I miss you all. We were talking the other day, and my husband and I have been here for 56 days. And I think if we just stay longer, you can just all watch the roots of all of our hair just get longer. We're all just going to go gray with each other. We were talking before about how if we just did an hour on what we should all do about our hair. I mean, Art, I guess, Tara, your wife Tara, who just won the Agatha, hooray, for her best first novel, is also a hairdresser. Has learned to do this for you and your son, Dad. So that's pretty great. The thing about Kristopher is just sort of rewinding a little bit. I remember the first time I was at Malice, and I don't remember what year it was, but you all will probably be able to figure it out. I was talking to Dana Cameron, and she said, "Oh, you're going to love it. Charlaine Harris is the guest of honor." I'm like, "Great." And I thought, who is Charlaine Harris? I have no idea who that is. And that was how long ago it was. So crazy to think about. Now, the last time I think I was at the Bethesda Marriott, I was so tired and so zonked, and my key card, my magnetic key card for the room had been demagnetized yet again. Remember how that always happens at Malice. So I'm so tired and I'm so wiped out, and I go to the counter and I say, "Sir, my key card got demagnetized again, and I'm so sorry. It's my fault, but can you just give me a new key card?" And he looks at me and says, "Ma'am, this is a Weston key card." And I said, "I know." And he said, "Ma'am, this is the Marriott." So that was how zonked you get at Malice. I remember going home on one Monday. I was so happy because I had made it through Malice, and all my energy was there. And I went to work with one brown shoe and one black shoe the next day. I was so wiped out. Anyway, but talking about knowing who people are, Kristopher Zgorski, you and I met so many years ago, and I can't remember. It was out at a bookstore in maybe Connecticut. Is that where it was?
I think the first time was at the Malice or the MWA University.
MWA University.
The very first one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was so fabulous. And then we met outside that bookstore because I remember, just as Art says, your orange shoes. And you had just introduced me to so many wonderful books and so many wonderful authors. And, we're just so grateful for the connections that you've given us, and the time that you've given us, and the authority that you have. If there's anything that anybody ever wants to know about a mystery novel, Kristopher, And I also think you all, I loved talking about the Malice Banquet, because remember last year when Michael, who always serves the wine, and Michael, this elegant, handsome guy, would put a napkin over his arm and serve the wine. And you and Michael also protected me from the wacky person sitting at our table. A story for another time. But I want to thank you so much for all you do for all the readers and all the writers and all the Malices, and long may you wave.
Oh, thank you so very much. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Enough about me. Let's move on to somebody else.
We like hearing about you, though.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. And we all, I remember when I heard somebody said it's BOLO Books, and I said, yeah, I wonder why they named it that. And they're like,
Be on the lookout.
Oh.
Well, I see that Cathy Ace has joined us, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Cathy. One of my favorite Malice memories is from 2017. Cathy reached out to me before the conference, and she said, Chris, I'd love you if you would join me for dinner at my favorite restaurant in Bethesda, Mon Ami Gabi. And I was like, oh, sure. So it turns out that Cathy wanted to introduce me to their favorite famous French martini. And boy, what I would give for one of those right now. We sat and talked about, oh, look at her. She is so prepared.
I didn't know you were going to say it. I just happened to have one.
We sat and talked about psychological suspense and domestic suspense. Cathy was working on her first standalone, The Wrong Boy, at the time, and it was going to come out early the next year, I believe, and she was asking about some marketing things. So we discussed that, and that was all great. But what really made it special was that we were sitting al fresco, and other Malice attendees were walking down the sidewalk to their evening events, and some would stop and talk to us, and some would wave, and some were completely oblivious. But it didn't matter because it made it feel like a family reunion. And that's what these conferences really are. They're family reunions. We get together once, twice, 3 times a year. We see people, we catch up, and it's just such a great thing. And we will get back to that, folks.
Yeah, we will indeed. Honestly, I didn't know you were going to say that. It's a very special memory for me as well, Kristopher. And I just so happen to have mixed myself a French martini for today because I'm missing it so much. So cheers, my darling. Happy memories.
Yeah, very much.
Absolutely. And just so you know, we're just, Drew Ann Love is going to be joining us next, and Cathy's going to be talking about Drew Ann, who is also a Raven Award winner. And her blog is at Drew's Book Musings. Oh, and here she comes. There she is. Hi, Drew. Hi. Welcome. And so Cathy's going to tell us some fun stories about Drew Ann.
Well, there seems to be a bit of a theme here. Drew Ann, lovely to see you, my darling. And I learned such a lot from you on Facebook, particularly about food. Now, this is a food story. This is a food story. So I'm sure many other people have shared a meal with Drew Ann. What I would like to say is Malice is a busy time, and people like Drew and Kristopher are in high demand, not just because they're such fabulous advocates for authors in the wider world, but because they are genuinely delightful people who are knowledgeable, who are fascinated by books and authors and reading and the process of writing. And when you sit down for a meal with either of them, you know you're going to have a great time. But with Drew Ann, let me tell you what I've learned about Drew Ann and from Drew Ann. Drew Ann's very professional in everything that she does, and she is no less professional and precise when it comes to ordering food, because Drew Ann is blessed to have eaten out often enough that she knows exactly what she wants, and she knows exactly how she wants it. And I have learned.
For sake, she's super picky.
No, not picky. But this is the thing: if you're in a restaurant and you know what you want, and I think you owe it to the server to explain to them how you want it, particularly if you want it a particular way, because when it comes, Drew Ann will look at it and say, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. And she's a happy camper. Otherwise, when the server comes back and says, how is your food? You get the polite response of, fine, thank you. And they move on. Now, I've learned from Drew Ann, I'm not someone who, I am quite a picky eater, but I will never say particularly what I want. Drew Ann does it politely. She does it perfectly, and hopefully she gets what she wants on her plate and therefore really enjoys it. And she is the only woman I know who could grade hot chocolate across the entire North America. A hot chocolate gradient is given to all of them. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about knowing what I want, saying what I want, and being thankful when I'm given it. So thank you to Drew Ann for that.
You're
I
welcome.
really, really missed our breakfast at Malice this time. So I'll have to cheers you with a cocktail. I can't do hot chocolate. It's too
have
hot. Cheers, my
water.
dear.
Thank you.
Oh, and
Uh-oh.
Drew and sorry, I was just making sure. Yay, we have Kellye. And we've been joined by Kellye Garrett, who is also the multiple award-winning, in fact, author of the Detective by Day series, which is really such a charming is the best word I can come up with. It's funny, it's clever. Really, her books are terrific. So if you have not yet had the chance to check them out, please do that. And now I'm going to let Drew tell us a fun story about Kellye.
What can I say about Kellye? And I call her Kellye Cal. I don't know where I got that from, but that's what I'm calling her. And that's what she is. I met Kellye before she became, quote, a famous author. We were in a chat and we were just talking about whatever. And okay, I can't remember whatever, but we were talking about something. But I do know that one of the things that I was shocked at, Kellye was having her New York City launch, and she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want you to interview me for my launch." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know why she's asking me, because I'm this introverted person." But I said, "Yeah," because I was trying to come out of my comfort zone. And I don't know if that was the first time we met in real life. No, oh, okay. But we met and we did the interview, and I was nervous as heck. And
So good though.
Kellye is a talker. Yeah, all you need to do is sit and let Kellye go. And that's exactly what I did, was let Kellye go. In the process
And are those the introverts' favorite kind of people too? We
Yes,
love
it
them. We love you guys.
Yes, we do love you guys. In the process, I met Kellye's family, her mom, her sister, and the twins.
The twins?
Everybody loves the twins. It's not about Kellye. It's about the twins. But another funny moment, and this was the funniest thing, and actually this happened recently, is I think Ellen Byron set up a little event with bloggers and readers, and somebody was appointed my handler.
God almighty.
Yeah, she took it to the extreme. You cannot look in my eyes. Around. Steal the grapes? Don't touch it. But Kellye is a good person to be around. She writes great stories. And I actually liked the fact that there was also a woman, or an author, that looked like me, an author of color. Because all the books that I read, I don't read books based on the racial breakdown of an author. But it was good to go like, wow, she can do it, I can do it, but I have no desire. But that's my story about Kellye.
That's so funny. Oh my God, that's so funny. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much, Drew. I really appreciate that. Drew and I actually go to lunch fairly often because we're both in New York. And so it's so funny hearing Cathy's story because she always gets a hamburger?
Yes.
With no bun, right?
No bun. Yep.
Yes. And I get the same thing too. I also get a hamburger, but I get a hamburger with a bun. So.
It's still a hamburger if it doesn't have a bun? Is it just
Yes,
claim it, Drew. Claim it. And also, Drew did an amazing job at my book launch because I definitely put her on the spot. We were at lunch, and I said, "Hey, do you mind interviewing me?" Because I wanted somebody who I felt comfortable with. And of course, with Drew, she makes everyone feel comfortable. So thank you so much, Drew, for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I want to talk about someone that you guys might know, Catriona McPherson. And this is kind of how Catriona really helped me get my book published. So I have a question. So how many of you guys are members of the Save Our Cozies group in Facebook?
I am.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, that started maybe like 4 years ago. And it was after, unfortunately, Berkeley Prime Crime had dropped a lot of their cozy series. And so it's now about 2,000, 3,000 members who all are cozy lovers like the rest of us, like me too. So when Save Our Cozies first happened, it was such a big uproar because so many amazing series were being canceled. And so Catriona, being Catriona, was with Midnight Ink at that point. And she posted in the group that, hey, if you are an author who has a cozy series, my editor at Midnight Ink, Terry Bischoff, is looking for cozies, and you should definitely sub to her. And so at that point, I had written my book, which would be Hollywood Homicide. And we had been on trying to get it sold for about a year without any luck. So, of course, I immediately messaged my agent. I'm like, Catriona McPherson said that we should definitely go and sub to Terry. So we subbed to Terry, and she actually liked it. And she said that I'm going to take this book to acquisitions. And so if you don't know what acquisitions is, it is basically the final hurdle before they buy your book. It's this big meeting where the editor pitches your book, and the publisher and everyone else decides that they want to buy it. And unfortunately, a lot of books die in acquisitions. And so publishing is really slow. And so we knew that she was taking the book to acquisitions, but we didn't know when. And so we didn't hear anything from Terry. And so me being this over-anxious newbie writer, I was like, I'm going to hunt down Catriona McPherson's email address, and I'm going to ask her about this. Mind you, this is Catriona McPherson, who's written 25 novels, right? 15 Dandy Gilver books. And I was like, I'm going to send Catriona McPherson, Catriona McPherson, who has, an Edgar nomination and 3 Mary Higgins Clark Award nominations. I'm going to send her an email. And I'm going to say to her, hey, person, even though you don't really know me, can you find out when the next acquisitions meeting is for Midnight Ink? And so Catriona McPherson, who has multiple Macavity Awards, Lefty Awards, Agatha Awards, wrote me back. And guess what she said? She said, sure. So I want to thank you, Catriona, for taking the time to be nice to a newbie author who contacted you out the blue. So thank you so much.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We can hear you. And now we can see you.
I just had
Look at all those books.
I've just had the most monster hot flush though. Look at me. I was so hot. I can't even blame the climate. It's just me. Oh, not dignified.
If we were all in a room together, we'd all be fanning you because
I know I've got a fan. I'm all right.
Okay. All right. It's all good.
Anyway, so now I'm so stuck because I put myself down for Elaine Viets and I meant Alexia Gordon, but I've also got a Hank ordering story, so I could talk really, 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 really fast. And thank you, Kellye, for letting me have a little smidge of the reflected glory of getting the.
Oh no, seriously, thank you. No, seriously, thank you. You're like probably the biggest supporter of authors, I think. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I do love them. I just had to suddenly, I very quickly went and got my own book to hold up because I was going to hold up someone else's. There you go. Publicist's dream. Anyway, can I start in on my stories now, Erin? Boss lady. She's not listening. She's checking.
I think you should. Just go for it.
Right. Okay. I'm such the youngest sister. I can't just do it until someone says go. Okay. Here's my Elaine Viets story. So it was BoucherCon in either St. Louis or Cleveland. So a long time ago. And she's so glamorous. She's so glamorous and polished and successful and grown up. And she's got a convertible. And even her cat's posh, right? So and someone said, oh, can you take a picture? And I thought, you can't ask Elaine Viets to take a picture. You're crazy. But they handed over their smartphone. And Elaine held the smartphone up to her face and said, why can't I see through it? And 3 people in chorus said, because it's a phone. And that was when she started to laugh. And she laughed so uproariously. And I thought, I'm going to be at home in this community because even these most polished, perfect, glamorous, grown-up looking people can laugh at themselves. And I've never met I've hardly ever met anyone in this community that can't laugh at themselves. And we've got to. That's my favorite thing. My Alexia Gordon story is more about the community. I met Alexia and we were picking up sausages and bacon and coffee at that long hot dish thing outside the Sisters in Crime breakfast when she had just finished her first book. I can't remember the name of it now. Sorry, Alexia. It'll come up on the sidebar. And she just got a publishing deal, I think, or it was on submission somewhere. And I said, oh, come and sit come to my table. There's one seat at my table. What's your book? And she said, oh, it's a paranormal cozy. And I said, oh, right, okay, wow. Anyway, so Alexia sat down at this table at the front of the Sisters in Crime breakfast at Malice. I think that might have been the year that I was the president. Anyway, it was right near the front. And she sat down, put her coffee down, put her plate down, put her napkin on, and then turned round to say hello politely to the person sitting next to her, who happened to be Charlene Harris. And Alexia, brand new author, first Malice, first Sisters in Crime breakfast, first just written her first paranormal cozy, went, just completely overwhelmed by seeing the queen, the empress of the paranormal cozy. And then she recovered very quickly, and they sat and chatted for an hour or an hour and a half about paranormal cozies and other things. And I sat on the other side of the table, you know, all professional, but inside going, oh, this is so fantastic. I was so happy. So there you go. That's what Malice means to me, is that someone who comes in trepidatious, doesn't know anyone, sits down next to Charlene Harris to talk about paranormal cozies for an hour and a half. Fantastic. Am I done, or can I tell you my Hank ordering story? Is this making a noise?
Go for it. I think she got kicked out. Go for it.
Okay, she'll be back. Here's my Hank ordering story. This was definitely in Indianapolis. Hank and I went out for dinner. You might not remember this, Hank. Hank ordered a burger with no bun, no cheese, no bacon, salad, no dressing, just a patty and a piece of tomato. And I ordered a twice fried breaded pork knuckle. I literally thought Hank was going to cry. And I sat and ate a twice fried breaded pork knuckle, which was delicious. And that is why Hank looks like Hank and I look like me. That's my story.
I think we lost Erin. So unfortunately, I think until she comes back, it might be the three of us.
Okay.
So keep talking, Katrina.
Oh, right.
Katrina's story.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, someone tell a Katrina story. Oh,
Katrina story right here. Yeah, right next to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay? My hearing is weird.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm supposed to talk about Ellen, and I'm going to, but when Erin fixes that up. So I was at the new author breakfast when my very first book came out it must have been in 2013. And the night before, Katrina had won the Agatha for Best Historical Novel. And she sat down at my table at the new author breakfast and introduced herself. And we were all eating breakfast. And I got up and gave my highly nervous little high-speed talk about my book. And after the breakfast was over, Katrina said, we have more things in common than just writing mysteries. I also have a PhD in linguistics. And that you knew that about me was one thing. And that you also had a PhD in linguistics just blew me away. But it was mostly that thing you just talked about, that, you could talk to anybody. And you just won an Agatha. And you were talking to me. And I was an absolute newbie. And that just changed everything. So thank you for that.
Edith, congratulations on your Agatha award.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Is it there?
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yes.
I thought you were going to lift up the teapot. Don't lift up the teapot.
No, they're giving them out next year. They're gonna.
You have to wait a year.
I don't have my teapot.
Oh my God, that's not fair.
I know. So I wonder if Ellen is coming in.
Can someone bring her in, or is it just that we might be stuck with the three of us?
I think Erin has to.
Yeah, I don't know if Erin's. I think Erin might be gone. This happened yesterday at Alex's thing too.
Okay.
Well, I can come. Erin, you there? I don't think so.
Somebody can text her. Oh, Ellen is there. Well, I'll tell my Ellen story, even though we can't see her.
Okay.
Yeah, she can't get in without Erin. Thanks, Sherry. Not stuck with you. Well, I'll tell my Ellen story to keep talking. It was at VoucherCon in New Orleans, and Ellen had organized a book launch party for one of her Cajun mysteries. I don't remember if it was the first one or an early one. And I went over. It was at an art gallery or something, and she was like so touched that people came to her book launch party. And I thought, well, why shouldn't I go to a book launch party? And last year, Ellen won the Agatha for Best Contemporary Novel, and I've never seen anybody. I've never seen anybody be so happy and blown away and tearful and completely shocked. Ellen Byron. It was really so special to see her go from, that first open mystery launch party to getting her Agatha. So that was such a special time. Yay, Ellen.
So amazing.
I don't think I've got an exception to that. Anybody can talk to anyone story, though. I remember once Laurie Rader-Day, we were all going out for.
Yes, talk about her. She can't say anything back.
We were all going out for tapas, which is just so annoying because you want a plate of dinner, right? You want your breaded pork knuckle, but we were going out for tapas. And she said, can my friend Sarah come? And we said, yeah, of course. But then it turned out that Laurie's friend Sarah was Sarah Paretsky.
I would have died.
And we were just we were like Alexia Gordon when she realizes she's at a breakfast table with Charlene Harris. We just all sat there. And tapas, it's just basically passive aggressive food. If there's 6 of you, they bring 5. If there's 5 of you, they bring 4. No one could eat anything. Because what if Sarah Paretsky wanted it? We were completely overwhelmed. Normally,
there we go. There she is.
Hey, how's the sound? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, because I don't have a headphone. So is it messed up? I have no. Hey.
There she is.
Hey, thank you. That was so sweet. Thank you so much. I love you all. I have to I'm telling an art story, and he knows nothing about this. Roots. I always give a root check at these things. So, so there you go. And I'm beginning to like Mike Ray. I'm beginning to think it gives me a little character. Anyway, so Art doesn't know this, but when we were both nominated for Best Debut Agathas, and I hadn't met him yet, and it was a great field. It was us and also Cindy Brown, Julie Henricus, and Tessa Arlen, all of whom were wonderful. So I show up, and I'm very new to the whole mystery world, and I'm very new specifically to the Agathas. I only heard about them like 2 years before. And so I show up to the first night, the night, and someone's, I start talking to someone, they go, well, Art's going to win. And I'm like, oh, okay, look, I'm just thrilled to be here. And they said, yeah, because the Chesapeake is a very tight group, and he is beloved in the mystery community, beloved. At that point, I'm going, you know what, there's some really fine writers nominated for this, and who is this Art guy that he's so beloved? So I had not yet met him. So minutes come by, a few minutes go by, I meet Art, and I'm like, I totally get it. He is like, if there is a magazine, if Time Magazine had a Nicest Man of the Year award, he would win every year, because that's Art. He is the nicest guy. Okay, so now cut to banquet night. So we're at my banquet table, and a woman sits down next to me, and she says, I am your good luck charm, because everyone I sit with wins. And I'm like, well, I kind of heard Art had in the bag, and I totally get that. So, but thank you. She goes, no, you're going to win. Everyone I sit with wins. Lovely, lovely women, loved her positive energy. They give out the award, and I was the not winner. Art won. And the thing is, when you're the not winner, there's this very awkward moment at the table afterwards, because people are like, hey, and they're trying to be nice. Now, meanwhile, my whole table was wearing masks and beads because I gave those out. So it suddenly became like a costume party gone horribly wrong. And it wasn't really so much that people felt badly for me. We all felt terrible for this woman because I had just broken her streak. And I just felt so terrible for her. And she was all like, well, okay then. And she just slowly, not so slowly, left. And I think I saw her. We've kind of, I know I saw her at another one after that, but now we kind of avoid each other. We don't make eye contact. Art had written a wonderful book and certainly deserved that. But Lisa Matthews, my friend Lisa, was at the table, and I'm sure she remembers that. My publisher was there. It really was kind of hilarious. But I just have this very vivid memory of everyone with their masks and their beads, just like. So anyway, that's kind of my memory. And am I the only person on right now?
No, I'm still here as well, Ellen.
Oh my gosh. Am I even on?
Yes, you are.
What's going on?
Am I on? I'm speaking, but
Wait.
I don't know if it's coming out.
What? Hello?
It's a
Hello?
solo.
Hey. Jeff, you want to take over?
Jeff.
Really?
I don't know if, am I on? Oh, good, okay. I just, anyway, so that's my memory. I'm ready to turn it over to you, Jeff. And go for it. I'm going to mute myself if I can find where I can.
I want to point out that when you did win, I was at your table.
That's right, you were at my table. Do you remember how awkward it was?
No, you won one time.
I feel so bad for her. That woman was so sweet. I feel terrible for her. But I was very happy for Art. Take over before I say something to embarrass myself, because we're getting there. I may start singing, so no one wants to be around for that.
If the email that I got is correct, I'm telling a story about Spencer-Fleming. And the thing is, there are not really good stories about Julia, like night. So I'm gonna make one. The truth is, I met Julia at about that time. It's not a good memory at all. Is this better? Does it sound better now?
A little.
Yeah. Okay.
It's still a little wonky.
There's Julia. I met Julia at the Voucher Con, wasn't it? Maybe in Toronto, I had one book out. No, I can't use my earphones. I need to turn. I did turn the volume on. Anyway, so I met Julia at a Voucher Con, and she. I had never met her before. I had heard about her because it was a great big deal. And her first book had come out, my first book came out. Her first book won the award in the world. And my first book got a very nice. Yes, please go first, Julia. Can we do this? We have sound problems. Now better? Okay. Julia sat down across the table from me in the hospitality suite. I had never met her before. And as she does, she took over the room. She sat down, she looked me straight in the eye, and she said, "I read your book, I really liked it. Now here are 7 marketing things you need to do." And had I done them, the book might have done a little bit better. But that was when we got to be friends. I met her late husband, Ross, who was a lovely, lovely man. I met her children. Wait, don't say anything for a minute. Are you trying to tell me that I'm getting too personal? There you are.
I see me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't know if anybody else can, but I can.
Somebody show me on the screen if you can hear me, because all I'm seeing is me and no one else right now.
I can see you, I can see Ellen, and I can see a still picture of Katrina.
They can hear me and see me. Great. Okay, so so I was trying to think of funny stories about you, and the only story that I could think of, I mean, we've had a lot of funny times, but I don't want to do stories where I am drunk. So, one Malice, one of the things, of course, that everybody does at Malice is you go out to lunch or you go out to dinner, right? That's the big thing. Who are you going out to lunch with? And you and I, Jeff and I, had made a dinner date, and we went out with my husband, Ross. And this was a thank you. I can't remember what you were thanking me for, but
there are so many things.
We went to back in the Crystal City area, Malice. There was one of those steakhouses like Ruth's Chris or something, but it wasn't. It was some old ball player's steakhouse. And I had never been to one of these. And we went in, it's as dark as a cave.
It was Morton's.
Yeah, thank you, Kristopher. It was dark as a cave. We went in, and there's all of this sports stuff everywhere. And we get the menus, and you order every individual thing. First, you get your giant slab of meat. Then you have to separately order a potato. Then you separately order a cauliflower or whatever it was. And, the guys Jeff and Ross are talking sports. And, I was drinking, but, and then we get our stuff. And of course the meat is like as big as this. And then the potatoes come out. And I remember this is where we lost it, because they were the largest potatoes I've ever seen in my life. And I live in Maine, where they grow potatoes. These were potatoes that had been, grown outside of Chernobyl, with the radiation making them inflate to 4 or 5 times the size of a normal potato. And we started laughing so hard about the giant potatoes that the waiter gave us dirty looks and then was trying to sort of get us to quiet down. And
I'm pretty sure we cooked them anyway, though.
About that, the giant potato story. It was, yes, I see, Susanna, it was very good food. It was just...
it was large food.
Yeah, enormous things. And I should say, I have one of my other favorite Malice stories does not involve anyone who's here, but the remarkable Margaret Maron. Margaret Maron was one of my heroes, and one of sort of my writing gods. And during my second Malice, it was the first one as a published author, and my first book was one of the nominees for the best first award, for the best first Agatha. And we had, as was traditional, Margaret Maron was the moderator for the panel for all of the best firsts. So all of us are like this. I think my friend Lucy Burdett, writing as Roberta Isley, was also on that panel at the time. We didn't know each other. We later became good friends. But afterwards, it was such a highlight. And then afterwards, I was sitting in the bar, which was a very lovely, elegant bar in the Crystal City Marriott. And Margaret came by with her husband, and she paused, and I was sitting down, and she laid a hand on my shoulder, and she said, "I just wanted to tell you, I really loved reading your book, and it was such a pleasure getting to talk to you on the panel." And I was like, Margaret Maron touched me. And then later on that evening, Ross tried to give me a hug. I said, "Don't touch me there. That's Margaret Maron's shoulder. It's not your shoulder anymore." So that is my encounter with a hero. I see Lee.
Yes, I'm here.
Waiting behind me. I can segue to you if Aaron can switch our screens.
I don't think I'm here to tell a Malice domestic story, though I do have one. I was supposed to be interviewed by Reese Bowen at a Malice domestic, and rather than being on stage with me, Reese threw herself down a flight of stairs instead. She preferred to be medevaced back home than to be in conversation with Lee Goldberg, and and Hank Phillippi Ryan interviewed me instead. It's amazing what what Reese will do to avoid me. So I've been sitting here listening to all these stories, drinking Diet Coke out of my Malice teapot, as I am prone to do. I'm supposed to tell a story about my first big break in the mystery genre. And many of you already heard this story. And if you have, I suggest you go look at cat videos for just a minute, because you're probably sick of the story. But my big break was the break that got me into writing. I was 19 years old. I was a UCLA student, and I had a professor who wrote those big, bulky Robert Ludlum-esque espionage thrillers. And they're very successful, and I befriended him, and I would read his manuscripts and give him my advice on sex scenes and action, even though I'd never had sex, and the biggest action I had was reading his books. But still, I gave him great advice, very passionately felt too. And his publisher came to him and asked him if he would write a men's action adventure series. They were sort of the male equivalent of the Harlequin romance, with titles like The Destroyer, The Terminator, The Defecator, The Drooler. They all had ER or OR at the end, and some guy on the cover with a giant gun, and women with big hooters in the background and explosions. And my professor said he wasn't hungry enough, desperate enough, or stupid enough to write one of these things. But he knew somebody who was. And so I pitched this book called 357 Vigilante by Ian Ludlow. Because I knew Lee Goldberg wasn't a ball-grabbing, neck-grabbing kind of great author name. No one knew who I was. But I thought Ian Ludlow would put me on the shelf right next to Robert Ludlum, the biggest-selling author on the planet at the time, and Ian for Ian Fleming. So people would go, Ian Ludlow, I think I read something by him. It wasn't bad. So my book, 357 Vigilante, which is right here, came out the same week this guy Bernard Goetz blew away some muggers on a New York subway train. Vigilantes were hot. My book became a national bestseller. New World Pictures bought the movie rights, and my publishing and TV and screenwriting career were born. I ended up writing 3 more Vigilante books. In fact, you can see the cover right behind me on the wall there. This is back when they used to paint covers. And the top always stayed the same, but they would repaint the bottom for whatever the action was in that particular book. But I owe my career to that big break and this god-awful book. So that's my story. I think that's all I'm supposed to tell. By the way, what do you think of my pandemic haircut? I did this myself.
It's lovely.
Want to see my roots? Apparently it's a thing. I notice every woman here doing it. So I don't know who's up next.
Apparently it's me. I'm up next. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Alexia.
I am supposed to tell a story about my biggest break in publishing. It's kind of I said 2 breaks that were equally big. One was I mentioned this in an article I wrote for The Thrill Begins. I went to a conference in Dallas called DFW Con. It's more of a writer or wannabe writer conference than Malice, which is a fan conference. But as part of the registration package, they offered pitch sessions. And so I got the 2 that came with registration, and kind of at the last minute, I decided, I'll just add a third. This is just practice. I wasn't expecting anything to come of it. I was doing the send out email query letters and hearing nothing, so I didn't have too many hopes. But as I went down to the registration desk on the day that we were to buy extra pitch sessions, and it just so happened that Kendall Lynn from Henry Press had lots of openings. That's literally the reason I picked her, because she had space, and I figured I was just practicing what the heck. Well, as it turns out, after I did my pitch, she mentioned, well, I'm looking for a paranormal cozy. So my next answer was immediately, well, I have a paranormal cozy. And it just sort of went from there. And she ended up asking to read my manuscript, and Henry Press bought the manuscript. And that turned into Murder in G Major, was the first in my series, the Yosemite Brown Mysteries. The second part of my break actually came because I enrolled in the Writer's Path program at Southern Methodist University. My first manuscript was actually my class project for that. And one of the instructors is Daniel J. Hale, who I'm sure many of you probably know. It's a mystery writer, now photographer, used to be vice president of MWA. Oh, thank you, Cynthia. He was also one of the instructors in the program. I still remember one of the earliest assignments he gave us in his class was tell me your story. You've got 10 minutes to come up with it. And I came up with the idea that eventually became Murder in G Major. Well, Daniel also happens to know lots of people. So when I called him excited to tell him, hey, I got an offer of a book contract, he introduced me to Paula Munier from Talcott Notch Literary, who then agreed to become my agent. So those are my two big breaks tied into each other. I got a book deal at the conference, and then a friend I had made in the writing program helped get me an agent who is now also my friend.
Erin, are you out there?
Well, I can do my big break.
Sure, because that was the end of my story.
I know. How many big breaks do you have to get in there? I think I was supposed to segue from my funny Malice stories into big breaks. And so my big break actually came before my book ever came out. And it was how I initially got published. I entered mine into a contest, the Malice Domestic Best First Traditional Mystery Contest. And the prize is publication and, in hardcover. And back then it was hardcover and softcover. Now it'll be hardcover and ebook. And I won the year that I applied, which was a miracle because when I finished my book, during the period of time when I finished the manuscript for my first book, I went from being a stay-at-home mom of 2 to a mother working at a law firm with 3 kids. And I can guarantee you, there is no way I ever would have put in the time to find an agent and send it out and all of that. So it was like I had one shot. It was sending one book into a contest, and I won it, because otherwise I would not be here today. So thank you very much, Malice Domestic Best First Traditional Mystery. All right, I see other people have popped on. Who's coming up now? I am at exactly the wrong distance for those reading glasses.
It's me. Well, I'm going to tell 2 stories, but I'm going to tell them really quickly because both of them are a little funny, so they can be the funny stories that other people told too. The first one is one of my big breaks I got way back in 1993. Malice Domestic started the grant program, which is now called the Bill Deek grant program. Back then, the first year that it was given, I won for what would later become the Scent of Murder. I was extremely nervous, you can imagine. I was going up there, and all of my heroes were sitting around watching me, and I had to give just a small speech, a thank you. And I was thanking people and talking about the Edgars, or the Agathas, and for some reason in the middle of my speech about the Agathas, I started talking about the Oscars. So I had a big embarrassment there. The people at my table were going, and finally I got the clue and I stopped and switched back to talking about the Agathas and sat down as quickly as I could. The other story I have is the flash forward about 10 years in 2002, my biography of Craig Rice, which was called Who Was That Lady?, was nominated for Best Biocritical Book. We were all standing there together, and I had not seen the list of people who were nominated as well. I am standing next to Tony Hillerman, who kindly and very genially sticks his hand out, introduces himself to me. Tony happened to be the guest of honor for the weekend and was also nominated for Best Biocritical. He had written a memoir, which is excellent. So I kind of knew at that point what was going to happen, but put on my best smile, and it was very nice to meet him. And that's about all I have for this.
I think I'm next. Oh, hey. My big break. I've had so many lucky breaks. It was hard to figure out where to start. But I know I was in an MFA program in creative writing where, you know, that's not where you write mystery stories, by the way. And I was writing a story that had gotten long, and I got invited to come do this fellowship program that the Midwest Writers Workshop used to have. 9 writers were invited, and they divided us into groups of 3 when we arrived with our teacher. And they had not put me in the nonfiction group or the fiction group. They had put me in the mystery group, which was news to me because, as far as I knew, I was not writing a mystery. And the teacher of this group was Terrence Faraday, an Indianapolis mystery writer who I had never heard of. Remember that I'm not in the mystery community. I'm not a mystery writer. The other 2 writers in my group were so excited to work with him. And I thought, okay. But Mr. Faraday, sir, I think I might be in the wrong group, I said. And Terry, who is now a good friend of mine, said, oh, okay, you think you're in the wrong group. Well, I read your 15 pages or whatever it was that I, prepared to help you today. And there's a crime in the first 15 pages of this novel you say you're writing. Are you going to solve it? And I said, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to solve it. And he's like, yeah, kid, that's a mystery. If you solve it. If you don't, maybe it's something else. So my big break was actually that somebody actually, like, instead of just being like, oh, you're in the wrong group, or, simmer down, kid. He actually helped me see that I actually was writing a crime story, and that was very valuable. And I don't know that I would have gotten that kind of gentle help that I needed. And that was the big break, because as soon as I knew I was writing a crime story, I knew what I had to do to finish that story. So Terry hates that story. He thinks that he sounds mean in it, but he is, of course, not mean. If you know him, he is the nicest guy. But from there, he also sent me to BoucherCon. He told me BoucherCon existed. And so I went to my very first BoucherCon, St. Louis, and I met all the NWA and Sisters in Crime people, and I made friends with Claire O'Donoghue, who introduced me to my agent very soon after that. So that was just being in the right place at the right time, and people telling you the truth, which is very valuable. I think Frankie's up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm at a broad angle, so I hope you can see me and hear me okay. Does it sound okay?
Yes, keep talking.
Great. So I hope you're all doing well and that you're getting some writing done. Hank, Ruth, and Leah gave myself a really bad haircut, so I'll go over there. Anyway, so my story about getting published as a mystery writer, I had written a nonfiction book. I got a real break there because no one else had written about the subject. I was writing about Black characters in crime and detective fiction. And so that was published. And then I moved back to Albany. And for about 5 years, 6 years, I was a part of a writing group and trying to get my book that I was writing based on my dissertation about my hometown of Danville, Virginia. I called Danville Gallagher, and I was writing a story about a crime story, and Lizzie Stewart ends up in Gallagher, and she's trying to solve a crime there. And so that went on for a while my dean was telling me not to try to publish a mystery while I was going up Virginia, or about to go up Virginia. So finally, I got invited down to New York City for a conference that was going on there. It was all about the mysteries set in New York City. And I was supposed to lead a tour through Harlem. I'd never been to Harlem since I'm from Virginia. So I got a friend of mine to actually lead the tour. And it turned out a colleague of mine from Arizona was on sabbatical. Gray Cavender, and he was in New York, and he turned up at this conference, and he took the tour through Harlem. And so we're walking through Harlem, and we're talking, and it turns out we're both writing mysteries, and we talk about it, and we part company, and I don't think about it for months. And then I get an email or a telephone call from him, and he says, I connected with a writer from my hometown, and she's now the acquisitions editor of this new imprint that Over Mountain Press is doing. Over Mountain is a small southern publisher owned by a family. And so he said, well, why don't you email her and tell her you have a book? Because I can't do it because my character's in Los Angeles, and so I can't take advantage of this opportunity, but maybe you can do it. And so I did, doubting greatly that, Deborah Adams was going to send me the manuscript, but she did, and I did, and I was one of the first authors that Over Mountain Press acquired. I think they got a few more at that point, and I got in on the ground floor with the small independent press, and I learned so much, and it was a really great experience. And then later, when that imprint closed down, they kept me around for a while, so my book stayed in print until I got another break, and St. Martin's actually acquired my other series, and I got 2 books out of that, which set me up for the historical thriller and for getting my agent and all kinds of really great things. So I'm really grateful for everything that happened. Over to the next person.
Fantastic story.
Yeah, it was really great. I've had a lot of good breaks along the way.
Cathy, they're asking us to say our names when we start talking. So this time, say your name before you start telling your story, okay?
Hello, my name's Cathy Ace. Nice to see you all. I'm here to talk about the big break. And I know there are going to be lots of stories about how getting published the first time around is a big break, which it really is. And I could talk about that for quite some time because it took a while. And being a Welsh woman living in Canada, it wasn't really front of mind for most people, but I managed it. And then we all go through various storms in publishing terms. But I do have a big break, and it happened in February this year, and I haven't been able to tell anybody about it, but I did get clearance to be able to tell it today. So first things first, maybe you know or maybe you don't, I write the Kate Morgan Mysteries. The Kate Morgan Mysteries, this is book number 9, coming out in June, The Corpse with the Crystal Skull. And I'm delighted to say that, do you all know Agatha Raisin, the television series Agatha Raisin? Are you watching that on Acorn or Sky or whatever? I love it anyway. And I'm delighted to say that that company has optioned the Kate Morgan Mysteries to bring them to television as 90-minute movies per book. And I'm absolutely thrilled. Cheers, folks. So I'm hoping that it's a big break insofar as that was February and then everything shut down in March. So, given my luck, it'll probably not wake up for some time, but we were discussing cast and we were discussing international distribution, and it was all so exciting. And you know what? I know there are people watching this who've got everything they've ever written since they were 2 years old optioned, but I've never been optioned before. And you only have your first time once. So this is my optioning cherry being popped, folks. And now's your chance to catch up with all 8 Kate Morgan Mysteries and the 9th before they ever find their way to television. And yes, I do know who I want to play Kate Morgan. And yes, she's Welsh. Fingers crossed. And you know what? I'm getting so excited and overheated now that I know I'm looking forward to handing over to big break time for someone who's had a big break rather than me just praying that it all happens. And fingers crossed we'll see Kate on television, large as life and just as cheeky within, a few years or so. Cheers, folks. Elaine, you're up, darling. Elaine.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I got my big break at Malice Domestic right after 9/11. If you remember that Malice Domestic, it was very scary. Washington, D.C. had military people all over. There were armored personnel carriers going up and down the street. And since it was a good Malice, I was at the bar. And
I met my editor, and the editor who's going to be the editor for the Dead End Job Mysteries. And my agent had given me strict instructions that I was not to talk about my book until my editor said so. And so she began talking about the Civil War. And I didn't know what to do. So I started talking about the Civil War with her. I dredged every bit of Civil War trivia I could think of. And after half an hour, she finally said, "So, what are you working on?" And then finally, I could talk, and it became the Dead End Job series. So Malice Domestic got that for me, and I'm really grateful. And the cat's name is Harry.
Yay, Harry.
Hey, Harry. Are you still frozen? Are you still there, Elaine?
Don't think her internet service is working very well.
It's got something to do with the cat, hasn't it? I can see a cat in the shot. It's bound to be cat-related in some way, shape, or form.
I would blame the cat, sure.
Oh, I didn't realize the background. It looks like that's growing out of my head. You see the picture? Pick the ace. Pick the ace. God bless. Hi, Hank.
Hey, how are you?
Are you here to talk about your big break?
I'm here to talk about my big break. I'm sort of hoping that my big break is still to come. You know, all the thing, big breaks are still to come. 2 big breaks, really, really fast. So great to see you all and to see all the names of people in the comments alongside. It's like the Greek chorus alongside everybody talking, and it's lovely to see you all. My first big break came not at a conference, but at the dentist's office. Actually, I was finishing the last Drive Time, the last Charlie McNally book, and trying to figure out what to do. And I had to go in for a root canal. It was one of those horrible, horrible things where, you know, my face was puffy and my teeth were hurting. It was awful. And the dentist was late and I was going to be late for work and there was just too much to do and the world was terrible. And how could anything possibly be good? So I was reading an old issue of People magazine that are so old and thin that they're coming out. The pages are coming out of the staples. And I was reading an article about John Sanford. John Sanford. That's because we're in the mystery business. Mark Sanford, the ex-governor of South Carolina. Oh. You know the one, not Mark, yes. The ex-governor of South Carolina who told his wife and constituents and family that he was hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Oh yes,
remember when he was actually off with his mistress. Hiking the Appalachian Trail has gotten whole new meanings now as to what that really means. But anyway, I started thinking about the other woman and who would be that and why would you do that and would there ever be a reason that it would be okay? And I in this article, someone said, I'm in the dentist's office and I'm mad and cranky. And in this article, someone was quoted as saying, "You can choose your sin, but you cannot choose your consequences." And I thought, oh, that is a great idea for a book. That is a theme if I ever heard it. You can choose your sin, but you cannot choose your consequences. And that became The Other Woman, which is exactly what it says on the cover of The Other Woman. You can choose your sin, but you cannot choose your consequences. So that was my day at the dentist that turned out to be the winner of the Mary Higgins Clark Award. So the root canal was totally worth it. And the other thing, my other big break, I don't know if it's a big break, but it's good news and you guys will understand, but my newest book, The Murder List, did not win the Agatha Award, for which it was nominated for the Mary Higgins Clark Award, did not win the Mary Higgins Clark Award, but I feel very nice about it because it just did make the USA Today bestseller list. So I'm really happy about that. And when Anne Cleves and Carol Goodman win, you can't really be upset about that. Those are stellar writers. So never be afraid to go to the dentist. You may get a good idea.
Hey folks, I'm back here just real quick. I'm in communication with Erin. She's having serious internet connection. She thinks stuff up happening in Florida because Elaine was having connection problems too. She's asked me to tell us to wrap up because we're in an hour. So I'm going to throw back to Katrina and Jeff to wrap this up since this whole thing was their idea. Thanks guys for planning this.
Go ahead, Katrina. I can't hear Katrina. Can anybody hear me?
No, I can't hear her either.
I just...
There you go. We can hear you. We got you.
Carefully turned my mic off. It's been so lovely to see you. It's been, it's horrible to not be able to hug you, but we wouldn't be able to hug you anyway. But it's been so fantastic to see you and hear your voices. I mean, online's fine. Email and text and Facebook is okay, but it's just amazing to see you. We all look fabulous. Our hair has never looked better. And thank you for coming along. Back to Jeff, because it was your idea, Jeff. Back to Jeff in the studio.
I want to thank everybody for showing up today, because this is exactly what we were hoping would happen. My first thought when I got this idea a week ago yesterday was to get in touch with Katrina and say, what do you think? Is this a good idea? And within 10 minutes, she had emailed everybody we'd ever met in our lives. And everyone we asked to participate said yes. I think that has something to do with the tenor of this community. It also has something to do with the fact that nobody can go out and they didn't have anything else to do. But it was lovely for everyone to come. It was lovely for everyone to agree to participate and to tell all these great stories. And maybe we'll get a chance to get together and do it again sometime, and maybe we won't. But either way, this was pretty much a daydream come true. And I hope everyone enjoyed it.